Hey everyone, just a few quick things before we get started. Don't forget to sign the attendance sheet. It's just real simple. Just ask you 2 questions. Kind of looks like this. But that's pretty much it. Please enjoy. Hope you all learn something.
Okay, hello everyone. In today's video, we're going to be going over arrays. My office hours at the top, so you can feel free to stop by, shoot me an email, you message me on Discord, whatever. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first question I have is, what is an array? So, essentially, an array is a variable that holds multiple values. Yeah, so it's essentially an array that holds multiple values, like an integer array can hold 1, 2, 3, 4, like however big you want it. Next question is, an array starts at element blank and ends at element blank. So arrays start at 0 and they end at size minus 1. So 0 to size is size elements. So if it starts at 0, then it'll end at size minus 1. If it starts at 0, then it ends at size minus 1. But they all start at 0, so they all end at size minus 1. And so the next question I have is, what do you need when declaring an array? So you need your data type. You need the name. You need the name of the array. And you need the size of the array, for the most part. And so the next question is, does the size of the array have to be given through a number? This one's no. You can use a variable to give the array size. But no, you don't need a variable to give the array size. You can replace the number with a... Okay, but no, you don't need to exactly have the number as a size. You can use a variable, and you can just replace the number with the variable. So the next question I have is, how do we declare an array? So there are multiple ways. So the first way you can declare it is just like any old variable. It's array as the array name. Open brackets then. Let's say we wanted it to be 5, and then close brackets, and then semicolon. And then, for example, if you were using a variable instead of a number, you could do array size. Oops, wrong way. Array size, and like that. And that's an example of using a variable instead of a number. Another way you can declare an array is if you don't want to give it a size, if you don't want to give it a size, you can do that, but you have to initialize it with some variables first, so like 1, 2, 3, and then you can even do both ways. So you both have a size and an initialization. Okay? And the next question is, how do you print out an array? To print out an array, you have to iterate through multiple elements. So the key here is to use a loop. Typically for loops, because you will know the size of the array. And you can do it like this: for int I equal to 0. It's very important that when you're using a loop to iterate through an array, you do start at 0, because arrays start at 0. I is less than size I plus plus. And then you could do like cout array of element I. So you find each element through the brackets again, and then close your brackets. Okay. And so the next question I have is, are any of these codes valid? So first we have an int main. We have int a of size 5 is equal to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, cout a of 5. And so this will be not valid because you can't print out a whole array with one cout statement like this. You need to use a loop. Use a loop to print out arrays. Okay. So the next one I have is int main. Array b of size 6 is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see that it says there'll be 6 elements and you only get 4. However, this will be valid. This is what we call partial initialization. So it's only gonna put the first 4 elements into the array, but the array still has space for 2 more elements. Okay, and then we have a constant called max 100. Then we have int c, array c of max size. And so this is valid. This is just like using a variable as your size input. Right? The next one is int b no size is equal to 1, 3, and 5. And like we were just talking about, this will be valid. The array will automatically initialize to size 3 since it was given 3 elements. These don't have semicolons, but they should. That's not why we're testing here, but let's continue. Then it has int e of size 2 is equal to 3, 6, and 9. And so you can see that there are more elements than there are sizes, which is why this is not valid. And it's very important that you keep track of your array sizes and elements correctly, because it's called an off by 1 error. It's very dangerous, and you should try to avoid it at all costs. Okay, then we have int f of size 6 is equal to 3, 5, space 9, 6. So you can see there are theoretically 6 elements, 1, 2, 3, and another 3 here. However, this is not valid. You may be thinking it's like the partial array initialization, but you can't skip elements in an array to initialize. If you need to initialize an array, you need to initialize all of the first elements. You can't skip an element and then initialize one after it. Okay, the next question is, how do you pass an array element to a function? And so you pass an array element just as if you were accessing an array element, which is just array of open brackets, the element size, so I guess it could be like 2 or I, whatever, and then close brackets. This will access you an array element, and that's how you also pass array elements into a function. Okay, the next question is, how do you pass an entire array into a function? And so this is one of the only times you can do this, but let's say you were calling a function called, let's say you were calling a function, and so what's the name of function? And then so, and this, like I said, this is the only time you can do it, but you can pass the array by just typing in the array name. You don't need to do anything special to pass an array into a function. Like, you don't need a loop or anything. This is typically the only time you can do that. Which brings me to my next question. Is this valid? Having a second array and setting it equal to the first one. And the answer is it is not valid. Like I said, the function is essentially the only time you can use a whole array to do something like that. You need to use a for loop to set each element equal. Okay? And before we move on to the code, I just kind of want to give you a quick visualization of what an array looks like. I like to use these tables. So let's pretend this would be like an array of 5, and then up here we can have our access numbers, like the array indexes or like the access codes, and then let's say we had every other odd number, so we have 1, 3, 4, 4 is not an odd number, 5, 7, and 9. And so like array of 0 would be equal to 1, and then array of 3 would be equal to 7. But essentially this is like how an array kind of looks, with this part being the indexes or the element numbers, and then this part is the actual values they hold. And so an uninitialized array would look something with like without like it wouldn't have anything in these values, but you could like put stuff in these values. But essentially it kind of looks a little like a table like this. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to open up Online GDB and then we can get started on the code. Okay? So the first thing it says to do is write a code where the user inputs the values of the array. So we first need to declare an array, so let's just do an integer array. And let's just say that the array size will be 5. And then we will need, let's just do a cout statement, cout into 5 integers. Inline. Okay. And then, like I said, anytime we iterate through an array, we're going to need a for loop. So for int I is equal to 0, while I is less than 5 I plus plus. Okay. And then so we need to take in the input and put it in each array element. And then if we were putting it out, you could create another for loop just for outputting, but it doesn't really matter. It's only going to output one at a time, so you can just stick it in here since you're not changing it. And let's see how it works. Okay, let's do 7, 0, 4, 6, 2, and then you get 7, 0, 4, 6, 2. And like I said, you can do this. And have one to iterate solely for the input and one to iterate solely for the output. That's okay as well. Okay. And the next one says write a program that has the planets in an array and puts them on order. So planets have names, so we will be needing to use strings. So hashtag include string. And so we'll need an array of strings. So strings, call it array is fine. And there are 9 planets. Pluto will live on in my heart. And so since we know the planets, we can just initialize it. So we got Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, Jupiter. I cannot see the code anymore. Okay, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus. Is it? I think it's with another U at the end. Uranus, Neptune. Oh, I just can't see anymore. Okay, Neptune. I'm just gonna make this full screen for a second. Sorry. And Pluto. Like I said, I feel for Pluto because he's small. I feel doesn't mean he should not be a planet anymore. Anyways, semicolon, And whoops, now I can bring this back over here. And so now we need to print them out in order. I already wrote it in order because we had control over the array. And so now to print them out, all we need is a for loop. Alright, so int I is equal to 0, while I is less than 9, I plus plus. Okay, then we can do cout array of I. And we'll have it inline too because they're words, so we want something like spaces or something between the words. So I'm just going with the whole line. And so you can see we got Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. The next program says to write the sum and product of all the elements in an array. So let's pretend like we have an array of integers of 1 to 7. So let's do 1, 2, 3. Yeah, okay. And we need to have a sum. And so whenever you want to find the sum of something in an array, you're going to need an accumulator variable. So you can do something like int sum, and so set it equal to 0, right? Because if you're taking the sum of everything in the array, you're going to need to keep adding stuff to the same variable, and you need to have it set equal to something if you're adding something to it, but you can't have it set equal to something other than 0, because then it would change the value, right? By setting it equal to 0, you allow yourself to use it, but without changing the first value. Now, if you were doing the same thing, but with the product, so that's actually the next part of it, the sum and the product. So we can do int product. Now we need to set it equal to something again, right? But we can't set it equal to 0, because something times 0 is always going to be 0. So we set it equal to 1 here, because something times 1 is just equal to the other number. And so now we get the for loop going. Int I is equal to 0, I is less than 7, I plus plus. Okay, and so we can do sum plus equals array of element I, and then we can do product times equals array of I. And so, just in case you don't get it, because I didn't explain it very well, and so just in case you need a little bit of understanding, we use a for loop to go through an entire array, because when we put array of I here, it calls the index as 0, which in this case would be 1, and then as I increases, the array index will also increase, so it will go through the entire array. So that's essentially why you use a for loop to print out an array. So we got sum of the array is sum, and then we got product of the array is product. Okay, and let's see what we get. Okay, so sum of the array is 28. Let's count that up. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10, plus 5 15, plus 6 21, plus 7 is 28. And then the product of the array is 5,040, and I'm not going to make us do that multiplication, but essentially that is going to be 7 factorial, right? Which is equal to 5,040. Okay, and so that works. Then the last number I have is, the last problem I have is write a program that has an array of numbers 1 through 5, then adds 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15 to the end of the array. So let's get started. So we have an int array equals number 1 through 5. So we have most of this already from the last code. So we'll do that. We should change the size to be, we have to change it to size, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. But we need to declare the variable size, so we'll do int size is equal to 5. Okay. And so what I'm trying to show here is show a dynamic array. And so this means that the size will be changing. And so now we need to add 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15 to this array. So what we can do is, since we kind of know what we want to add, we can kind of do our own thing with this. So what we'll do is since we know we're adding 5 numbers, we'll use a for loop. And since we know we don't need to go all the way to the first one, we'll start at 5. And then we'll do I is less than, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new numbers. So 5 plus 5, that'll be 10. And then I plus plus. But we can see that our array is still only size 5. What we can do is we'll increase the value of the size within this for loop. Okay? And then we can do array of I is equal to, create another variable. I'm going to call it start, and I'm going to set it equal to 2. And so what we can do is we can then do start, and there's a few different ways you do this. I'm doing start plus plus I. That way it's going to give us 2 plus 5. And then when I increases to 6, we can do start plus plus, so that start will be 6 it'll be 3 while I is 6, giving us 9. And then when I increases to 7, start will be 4, giving us 11, and so it should continue like this. And then we can write a second for loop, to output our code. Okay, and then we can just do cout array of I space. And let's see how it runs. Okay, so this actually turned out great. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we got 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15. And so there's multiple ways you could have done this, but I just wanted to show you how a dynamic array works, how you can change the size of an array, which is what's called a dynamic array. Okay, well, that's it for this video. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you all for making it all the way through this video. Here's a little way of saying thank you.